Hi everybody, it's Katie. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we are going to be making nose rings. Well, not real nose rings, but like faux septum rings. I don't have my nose pierced. I've been thinking about it, but not yet. So I was thinking I would make myself a couple fake septum rings so I could wear them and see if I actually want to commit and do the real deal. I have actually made one in the past. Here it is. It's not focused, but you can see here. And then this is the other side. It's kind of reversible, sort of, kind of. And then how you put it in is, see if you can see it's got little balls here. So you just kind of push it up in your nose. I couldn't get it in this morning. Sometimes I feel like my nose swells. Is that a thing? I don't know. But I'm going to make a couple more. I want to make one with an opal, which is what we're going to do today. And yeah, just play with it, see how it goes. I think maybe I should make the wire a little bit of a thinner gauge than what I made on this one. But let's do this thing. Okay, so I've been thinking about what I want to do for my nose ring. So here is the one that I've made before. This is, I used a 16 gauge for the ring part, and then I used some sheet for the bottom. Now I want to make one that has a little Ethiopian opal. This little 5 millimeter Ethiopian opal. Man, I can't talk today. Words are hard. And kind of put it on there like that. I don't want to do it exactly the same as this one. I want to do it differently. And I have this 5 millimeter bezel cup. But I want to do something sort of like that. But I'm not 100% sure what I want to do yet. But I do have some mandrels. So this one is about a size 9.5. It's a little bit bigger than this mandrel here. 9.5 millimeters. I'm going to try one that's a 7.5 millimeters and a 9 millimeter today and see how that goes. So I have my wire here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just wind it around this mandrel here. Okay. So I'm going to wind it around there, and then I'm going to cut it off with my wire cutters. And it's okay if you use the wire cutters for this and not like a saw, because we need to ball up the little ends of the wire anyways so that they can go into your nose and hold on, kind of like this one has a little balls wired at the end. So I got that one. Now I'm going to use my little bit smaller one, my 7 millimeter. I'm going to just do the same thing. It's a 7.5 millimeter size one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have my two little rings, and you can see how these are an 18 gauge, and this one is that 16 gauge, so a little bit heavier. All right, so let's go ball these guys up. Okay, so all I did was I kind of twisted the ring open a little bit more so that I could ball up one side without melting the other, hopefully. I can get this to focus while I'm doing it. I'm going to take my butane torch and turn it on. Now I'm just going to kind of dip my metal, the end of it, into the flame. Alright, there you can see, hopefully it made a little ball. I'm going to do it on the other side. I'm going to ball it up a little bit more than that. There, made like little ball ends. I'm going to go ahead and quench this. And now, let's see if you can see this or not. There we go. See how now it has like the little ball ends? And then when I twist it shut, you can see the little balls. So let's try this guy on. So this is the 7 millimeter. You can see that it doesn't hang down as far. It even kind of sticks up where you almost don't even see it. is a lot smaller. It kind of just hugs around the bottom of my nose. So this is the 9mm ring. It hangs down a little bit lower than the 7mm did. Cute. Okay, to start we're going to use a 9mm mandrel, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some wire that is an 18 gauge, and I'm going to wrap it around my mandrel a couple times. I usually like to make myself like 2 of things, just in case I mess one up. So I have my coil, and then I'm going to get my wire cutters, and I'm going to cut the coil off. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to cut the ring like so. So now I have a ring. I'm going to take the wire cutters, clip a little opening right there. So I'm just twisting the rings apart again so I can ball up the ends like I did on the first couple rings. Basically, we're just making another simple nose ring that we're going to embellish. So I'm just balling it up here. You can see I've super speed going on here. We're going to get those all nice and balled up, quenching it. And then I'm going to take some decorative wire. This is a 16 gauge twisted wire. And I'm just filing off the end. And I'm going to shape this around the bottom of our simple nose ring that I made so we can make it a little bit fancier. So the plain wire that made up the base of the nose ring is an 18 gauge round wire, and then this is a 16 gauge twist. So I'm just messing with it. A lot of this part is very fussy and you just keep having to fiddle with it to get it just right so it fits the curve really nice and it's the length that we want it. So once that I have that part done, I'm taking some 16 gauge round wire and I'm doing the same thing because I want it to kind of have a stepped appearance. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. The one other nose ring that you see in the frame is one that I made, but it didn't quite come out quite how I wanted it, so I'm basically recreating it but making a second one so that it comes out a little bit better. And again, just fiddling and fussing with it, making the curves just fit just right. It's all part of the jewelry making process. It's kind of a boring part of the process, but it's the part of the process that you have to do to come up with a really cute end project. All right, let's see what we're doing next. Okay, so now we're moving on and we're going to solder. I'm spraying on some flux, so I get it nice and coated with flux. And I'm going to take some little pieces of solder that I have already on my soldering board and picking them up with my solder pick. And I'm placing them just where I need them to go so that the solder flows and connects those 2 wires to my nose ring base. Just adding some on one side, or speeding it up the process, adding some on the other. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going in and adding more solder everywhere that I need so that it flows all the way around the curve of those wires. And again, just fussing with it, fiddling with it, and trying to get it just right. No flux. Okay, so now that I have it soldered, I'm just making sure the solder flowed all the way through the back as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and quench it so that I can take a look at it and make sure it's come out the way that I want it. Alright, so now I have my 5mm pre-made bezel cup. It's fine silver. And I also have a couple pieces of wire. I'm going to make up some little ball accents to add onto the bottom of the nose ring. I'm just balling those up. Sterling silver wire likes to ball up on itself. It's pretty much like magic. I decided the balls weren't quite big enough, so I added another piece of wire and I'm going to melt it into the balls that I already made to make the balls just a little bit bigger so they have more presence on the finished piece. Now I'm just quenching the balls and then I'm going to solder them onto the nose ring piece that I have. More flux everything. Pick up some solder, that's what I'm placing on the balls right there, as I have some little pieces of solder on my board. And now I'm just lining everything up
to get everything into position. Now it's time to add the bezel cup, and you can see I'm adding some solder to the bezel cup, and then I'm going to get everything positioned to solder the bezel cup on as well. Looks pretty good. Alright, so it's all clean. I got it out of the pickle. It's all nice and silver. Got all the baked on flux off of it. Now we're going to patina it with Midas Black Max. So I want to highlight the texture, the details of the twisted wire. So I'm going to take my shiny silver piece, dip it in the Black Max. It goes black almost instantly, which is really pretty cool. And now I'm going to rinse it off to remove all the excess patina. I have a little cup here. It's just got water in it, but I'm going to add some baking soda to it. So baking soda neutralizes the patina and stops it from continuing to darken. So dump some of that in there. Shake the camera a little bit. Alright, so once I fish it out, I'm just going to rinse it in plain water to remove all the baking soda off of it. And then I'll be ready to start sanding off the patina where I don't want it to really highlight that twisted wire. Ta-da! Alright, so I have some 400 grit sanding sponge. I really love the sanding sponges for sanding my silver work. They are just great. Let's speed that up because it's really boring to watch. But you can see the process where I'm just sanding all the surfaces and removing all the black that I don't want. Looking pretty good. All right, let's move on. Now we have this called a Pro Polish Pad. It's slightly gritty too, but it's kind of foamy. It's good for starting to shine up the piece. And I could just throw it in the tumbler, which is what I probably would recommend people do. It's much easier than trying to hand polish it, but for the video's sake, I was using a Pro Polish Pad, which also works pretty well. All right, so now I'm going to test fit my opal and see that it fits in there pretty good, but it's a little short for the bezel cup. The bezel cup's a little high, so I'm just going to take the opal out with some sticky wax, and now I'm going to file down the bezel so that it's the correct height for the cabochon that I'm using for this piece. This is a 2-cut Grobet file that I was using, by the way. My favorite file to use. Then I'm just going back to the sanding sponge, sanding down where I filed to remove any tool marks or burrs that were left on the setting. And now I'm going to go ahead and set my opal. So I like to set my stones on top of something nice and hard, like my little mini anvil there, or bench block, and I'm going to use a setting punch, which is a square-ended punch that's been filed and smoothed over so it doesn't put marks into my silver. I'm just folding the bezel up and around my stone, working my way all the way around to get down all the edges nice and tight. All right, looks pretty fabulous if I do say so myself. Just going back in real quick and buffing up the bezel setting that got scuffed up a little bit from me using the punch to set it around the opal. Just doing some last minute touch-ups, and then we'll be finished and we'll be able to try it on.